Dr. Mark Jangizi here with your Science Moment. I'm totally for free expression, but, not for extremely damaging statements by my opponents, or if they're lying, then, which I totally think they are, then I'm against free expression for that. But otherwise, I'm totally for free speech. I'm going to talk about that today. These are real people who make these arguments, and they make them constantly. And it's one of the reasons why we have to have a firm commitment to free expression, a radical commitment to free expression in all cases. Wanted to remind you about Dr. Tim Barber, and my book came out several weeks ago. We need your support. Regular mainstream journalists. I was typically covered in all of the media. Scientific American, Discover Magazine, Time Magazine. In my previous books, nobody is touching me this time. If you want independent researchers to be out there, like me, outside of academia, that had a voice when everybody rose up in groupthink and had the distance from them to push back, to be able to push back, well, then you need to help support independent research. Go get a copy of our book, Expressly Human, on the origins of emotional expressions and what it is that masks destroy, and also the foundations of free expression itself. So there's a lot of folks who, when Claire Craig, for example, and many dozens of those on Team Reality, which are censored, they're like, well, I'm totally glad that she's gone, and they'll start with the sentence, I'm for free expression, comma, but this person is so dangerous. They're so dangerous, I'm glad that they're gone. Or this person was like, they were purposely lying. It was disinformation and not mere misinformation. So these folks pretend to have an attachment to free expression, but not in these extreme cases. Now, of course, the trouble with that is that all of us have the positions that we do in whatever political position it is, or whether, and then thus have an opposition. To the extent that we have an opposition at all, it's because we feel ourselves part of some political position that we believe is right. We believe it's both ethically right. We believe that it works. We believe that the opposition is ethically wrong, and that their position is either ethically wrong or doesn't work, or both, or some combination of that. So, of course, one believes that the opposition is pushing for positions that, in fact, harm the world, independent of whether they understand that it harms the world, right? Of course that's the case. So you can't use the fact that you think that this speech harms the world as an argument that it should be censored. Of course you think that, because you're not part of it. You have the view that you have because you think the opposing point of view is bad. So you can't point out that it's bad as evidence to censor it. That's just to say that there should be only one viewpoint in all debates. The good viewpoint, the true viewpoint, which is ridiculous. So then a lot of times they'll back up and say, okay, well, this was not just misinformation. They'll at least pretend to get the greater point that all arguments, all discussions have at least 2 points of view, or multiple points of view, of which at most one is right. They'll pretend to get that, but then they say, well, this is different. This is disinformation. This is purposeful, intentful lying in order to cause havoc of some kind, or to pad their pockets of some kind. And you have to wonder, in the case of the anti-lockdowners, exactly what is it that we're gaining here? What is it that I gained, for example, after coming out in early March of 2020, and being, at the time, one of the lone voices that I knew of. Of course, we eventually found one another, but it became the target of derision, being a denier, being a grandma killer. How did I gain from this exactly? Right? What was my intentful point? What was I scheming to do by purposefully lying about the infection fatality rates and the historical agreement that lockdowns were something that no one would or should ever do? Why would I be saying these things exactly? Why would I be being a disinformer? It's unclear. And it's also unclear why the other side would be a disinformer. I don't believe that almost anybody on the lockdown side is doing purposeful disinformation. Most of these people, if they're lying at all, which is rarely, are white lies. They say, well, I may be lying about this, but it's really for the greater good, because they really do believe. Point you to, they are not lying. They're not lying. What's driving these events is not disinformation. Occasionally there's some white lie disinformation, and even less occasionally so, there's purposeful pocket padding or power aggrandizing lies, but usually even the power aggrandizing and pocket padding is done by genuine belief in what they're doing, and that they're, yeah, I'm making money, but I'm also saving the world. That's generally what happens. So one can't claim to believe in free expression and simultaneously ever say, but this is too harmful, but this is disinformation. Because there's a human tendency to see the opposing side, and the anti-lockdowners have this in spades. We see this on the other side. It's like, surely you can't believe that those things that you put on your faces to block respiratory viruses work. Surely. But as I've talked about, no, the science did change overnight. And these are explained by these kinds of psychosocietal post hoc, once the position becomes a virtue position, it's post hoc justified after the fact. And the narratives ensure that the people really do come to believe them. They really do come to believe them. The opposition of us in Team Reality really believe what they say, most of them. That's what's driving this. They really believe what they say. And we really believe what we say. An attachment and a commitment to free expression requires that you're tolerant of even the positions that you believe are harmful, and even the opponent's positions that you could swear are lies, because we're always going to believe they're lies. We very often are. It's just almost absurd to us that could you really possibly believe that? Yes, they do. Yes, and we can come to understand why they do. Right? It's a human tendency to not be able to understand that they really believe the crazy crap that they believe, as I've talked about before. Why do they believe the crazy stuff that they believe? There's reasons for why they believe it. Again, it doesn't justify it, doesn't make them not morally culpable, but they really do believe it. And it's really, really hard for us to get that. But that's never a justification for their censorship, nor is their speech being harmful ever justification for their censorship. And that was your science moment. Go look us up at freex.group. This is the research institute that Dr. Tim Barber and I started to study exactly these kinds of psychosocietal forces that drive society, that mess up society, and ways in which we might be able to someday inhibit, stop, reverse them, minimize them. And that was your science moment.